my friend Carlos, he added to the tutorial the procedure to create your own multisig DRep,
Ooh.
which I believe is pretty nice. So if you go to SanchoNet for the one that uses the CLI, and you go into documentation in the tutorial tab, you should see somewhere vote as multisignature DRep. Oh, actually, no, here, register multisignature DRep. And here you can see the entire procedure that I described in an earlier video, but with less pretty tutorial, right? We just did a step by step. So here you create your credential, your ID, and yeah, here's the script.
I'm sorry, where are you? Because the Sancho.net was down.
The SanchoNet Network? Or are you talking about the sanchogov.tools?
Oh, yes, gov.
Oh, okay. So yeah, no, I mean, this tutorial is for the command line interface user. So it kind of never go down because you're the one interacting directly with it through your node, your own node. But if you want to talk about the sanchogov.tools, the reason why right now it might be, yes, it is, is because we did another respawn. We did another reset. So because of the new version, they just got the version, I don't want to say something wrong. I think that's 8.11. Maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully not. Actually, that's the GitHub that I want. No, not Twitter. Damn. GitHub. Let's go see the GitHub. Are you on SanchoNet, Rick? With your pool?
But I did register as a DRep, but I don't have my pool on SanchoNet yet.
Oh, did you register from the CLI or you use the sanchogov.tools?
I use the Gov tools just to mess around and see what it's going to be like for other users.
Okay, but from the CLI, you've tried the features. I mean, did you try to submit actions and do stuff like that?
Not through the CLI, no.
Not through the CLI. Okay. Maybe something I can explain. Something that's common actually. Oh no, wait. Should I? Hold on. Actually, I'm just going to use the one that I did. Where is it? Where is it? Cheat sheet. There you are. I don't know if you guys can see it. Where is it? Where is it? Governance action. Yeah, something that's common since the interim constitution, as you may already know, is going to have guardrails. So we do know that for each action there is a threshold, right? Like for example, well, actually I could just pull them. Give me a second. Where was it? Where was it? Maybe I'll just get it from the Cardano. I'll just pass from the website. The environment files, if we go into developer portal, and I'll just go grab them. Running Cardano node, where are you? Over there. Okay. So let's use the SanchoNet one and the Conway Genesis. There it is. Okay. Yeah. So as you may know, there is a threshold for each governance action, right? So let's say, for example, the Constitution, 75%. So you need like 75% of the DReps yes vote to be able to ratify a constitution on SanchoNet right now. But with the
So is it,
yes,
I'm sorry, is it 75% then of just the registered stake to DReps, or is it like a total stake outstanding, or how is that done?
that's 75% of the total amount of ADA delegated to active DReps.
Gotcha.
That being said, this is the layer 1 rules. So you can change those thresholds if you wanted to through a protocol parameter change governance action, which is one of the protocol parameters from the governance group that you might have seen from the infographic that I did about this. Not sure I should show it to you. You probably already saw it. Just
Yeah,
in
I've
case.
seen it.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so that being said, the Constitution itself is going to have guardrails specifically for the committee. So the idea behind that is that, let's say that the minimum acceptable threshold for a governance action would be the soft majority, like 51%, for example. That's just an example. So the Constitution itself is going to have guardrails included in a smart contract that they use to vote to hold them from voting yes on any threshold change that goes under 51% or above a certain number, which I don't know, it could be 80%, for example. So between those guardrails, they can vote yes. But above those guardrails, they cannot. And they're going to push it to the point that you as a NADA holder won't even be able to submit a governance action that's going to go above those guardrails that's written in the Constitution. Because right now it is not mandatory, but I assume that it's coming. For example, protocol parameter change here, that's the flags from the CLI. You see here, there's this new flag that they added. Where is it? The script. It's somewhere. There it is. You have to include the Constitution script hash when you submit your governance action. So if your governance action itself asks for protocol parameter change that goes beyond the guardrails from the Constitution itself, you probably won't be able to even submit it on chain. And this
Can you
is
give like an example of what something like that would be?
what do you mean? Governance action itself?
No, what would someone submit that would be outside of the range for the Constitution? Can you give us like an example?
Oh, well, I don't have the Constitution itself, but let's say that the guardrails written in the Constitution for, let's say, protocol parameter change threshold, like here. If I want to change something from the networking group of protocol parameter change for DReps, right now the threshold is 67%, but if I want to change that threshold, I need to submit a protocol parameter change governance action, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to change one, well, actually, no, it's the threshold from the networking group that I want to change, but the protocol parameter change governance action to change that threshold is from the governance group, which is kind of tricky. You want to change a parameter from the networking group, that's the threshold. But if you want to change the threshold of the networking group, like the threshold value, that's a governance group protocol parameter. Yeah. But that being said, the threshold is 75% to be able to change that threshold. But if I want to change this threshold to something that's above the guardrails, I want it to be 45%, right? I want it to be 45%. So I build my governance action. I try to submit it on chain, but by building my governance action, I'm forced to use the constitution script hash inside my governance action. Then on submission, if that doesn't respect the guardrails written in the constitution script hash, which is the hash of the smart contract, then I will not be able to submit it. It won't even get on chain because it goes beyond. So if I ever want to do that one day, what I'm going to have to go through, I'm going to have to first change that rule. So the first thing that I'm going to have to do is to create a constitution, go through the create constitution and change that guardrail inside the constitution and convince the community and well, actually it's the community, because if the rationale behind my thinking of lowering that to 45% is okay and it follows the rules from the constitution itself about providing rationales, then it should be seen as constitutional by the constitutional committee and they will vote yes on it. So it might be tricky, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that kind of makes sense, though, right? If you have guardrails built into the Constitution, it kind of makes sense that in order to change those guardrails, you've got to change the Constitution. You can't do it through a different action.
Yes, if you wanna go past those guardrails, it could actually happen, right? Something doesn't make any sense, or we stall governance for any reason for a particular protocol parameter. And could be any, actually, it could be the minimum fee, for example. I want to raise it to a certain, or I want to lower it because let's say that ADA pump to $10 and now it doesn't cost like 5 cents. It costs like, I don't know, $1, $2, $3, something like too expensive, just like Ethereum. And I want to lower those constant fees or the base fees of a transaction, but I want to lower it below something that's written in the Constitution as a guardrail. Then first I would have to change the Constitution part that mentioned this. And then when it's done, I can go ahead and change the protocol parameter itself to a value that used to be under what's in the guardrail of the Constitution. And if I go through that with the proper rationale, because it's very important to provide one, and actually it is mandatory, as you can see here. There's no square brackets, so you have to provide something, reasoning behind your action, or else you're just gonna end up losing 50,000 ADA for nothing for an epoch numbers of time, which is the equivalent of the value of governance action lifetime that is written here. And it's set to 8, so it's 8 epoch, which would be, I'm not good at math.
A little over a month. 6 epochs is a month, so it's a little over a month.
Yeah, that's 40 days. That's correct.
Yeah.
Month and a half. So yeah, that's very interesting.
So the deposit to do an action is 50,000 ADA, and that's refundable then after those 8 epochs?
Yes, that's correct. But the incentive of doing things right would be that, and I mentioned it in one of the committee meetings, you don't get reward from those 50,000 ADA. And that's kind of significant, but because a month and a half of reward from 50,000 would probably, I think they mentioned it would be close to 100 or something, ADA, I think. I might be wrong. But the thing is, if you want to raise the incentive, you can make the governance action lifetime longer. So the consequences of doing bad things would be to lose your reward from that amount for longer, or you raise that amount. It's either the two of those. I'm not too much into slashing or losing the entirety of it, because your governance action itself can be right it can be constitutional and people just won't vote
Go
for it,
for it.
right?
Yeah.
So I still think this is the right way to do things. And in Cardano, we don't like slashing. I hopefully still believe that we don't like that. And yeah, that would be a great thing to do. And let's say I want to do that. Like there's too many bad governance actions or anything. If there's too many, I'm gonna try to raise the deposit amount probably. If that's too much for us to read as DReps, for example. But if not, if it's just something that recurrently comes back, but not in a too high number, then as an incentive, I could decide to change that parameter for something higher and provide the right rationale. So in my rationale, I would just say that we need bigger consequences of doing such a thing, and that would be one of the consequences of losing the reward from that amount for a longer period of time. For
And
example.
that wouldn't be a guardrail, right? The 50,000 is just a parameter, not a guardrail.
Yes, all these that you see here, they're all parameters. Um, yeah, that's something that if you give me enough time, I will eventually. It's just that the interim constitution is not entirely finished. So if I, well, first of all, I'm not allowed to. Uh, yeah, anyway, not
Yeah,
allowed to say too much
I
about
gotcha.
it, right? But as soon as I would be allowed to, I will make an infographic explaining what's on the layer 1 as protocol parameters and the guardrails that protects us from doing bad things with them. Um, and of course, we have to choose values that stands in between those guardrails at best. If not, we can change it always. That's the way it's made. And if we want to add something that's not an actual parameter, and a great example would be the number of epoch between ratifications and enactment. As it is right now, it's 1, but it's not an updatable parameter. So it's always like this. Governance action gets ratified because you manage to cross all thresholds. Then automatically the next epoch, the very next epoch, it gets enacted. And that can change. We can't, there's no way for us to extend that amount of time. So if we do something critical, the example I gave was like raising the minimum, the base fee of a transaction to 1 million ADA, and it gets ratified. Then we have the epoch in between to change that back to a normal value before it gets enacted. Because during that amount of time, the fee is still normal, and we can submit a governance action, try to change it back, and have people voting on it without having to pay 1 million ADA as transaction fee to put a transaction there. It's still going to get enacted because you can't stop it. But the thing is, as soon as this one gets enacted, the one that you just ratified there by trying to put it back to normal is going to be enacted the next epoch after. So you will end up at the end of this having just an epoch length of having to pay 1 million ADA as a base fee for transaction. So you probably won't have any transaction there, but at least you fixed it without having to go with the Cardinal Classic story. And but that's not an actual updatable parameter. I would like it to be, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to do that, you got to go through a hard fork. You have to change the core of the Haskell code, and that can be done. But you have to go through a hard fork because right now it doesn't exist as an updatable parameter. Yeah.
But I assume on something like that, there'll probably be a guardrail that fees can't exceed a certain
Yes,
thing.
that's correct.
Yeah.
There's a guardrail for everything.
Yeah.
That I can tell. The exact value, I'm not gonna go there because it can actually change, and there was a lot of typos in the interim constitution. Yeah, I had that I can say too, right? In the first page that I read, I had like 6 pages of notes about my personal objections of what was written there. But I didn't even send it to Joel. I really should do that. I'm just too busy. Because right now I'm building the infographic for the technical group. I'm working on that right now, and every time I do a new infographic, I try to make it prettier than the last one, so it gets harder and harder every time.
Well, you're doing an amazing job. I just love all your infographics.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I'm putting a lot of mental juice in there.
Yeah, I can tell.
Uh, so yeah, who is there? Is it too much maybe for you, G Coco, J Coco, J Coco, J Coco?
Yes, all good, all good.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was walking into, so I'm just absorbing and enjoying and learning.
I went highly technical, especially on the part that, and it's gonna be hard to understand because there is threshold for everything you do, right? For everything that you want to ratify, there's a threshold, but the tricky part is that if you want to change the threshold itself, the value of the threshold, then there's another threshold for that. And that's what I was trying to explain. Like all those values here from for every governance action for stake pools and DReps, all those thresholds value can be changed. But to change it, you need to cross the threshold of the governance group that's here, which as you may see, according to our recommendation, is a little higher than the rest of it. Because simple reason that we came up with 75% for DReps. For DReps is because if the threshold to change the threshold value of the other governance actions is lower than the threshold of the governance action that you're trying to change itself, then it's easier to make a threshold value change than it is to ratify what you're trying to change. So for example, if that value was 51%, it would be easier for me to try to change the value of what I do want to change to something lower than trying to change it directly. So this is why our reasoning behind that number had to be higher than the rest of the of some of the thresholds for protocol parameters. But I'm not too worried about the DReps because, like I mentioned, very often it's a self-healing system. If you can't manage to cross a threshold because there's too much inactivity, and the inactivity of the DReps is seen as a no vote, right? As long as the DRep is active, if the DRep doesn't do anything, it is seen as a no vote for every governance action that's on chain. But it's a self-healing system, which means that eventually those DReps who doesn't do nothing will get inactive and will be out of the system, will be out of the calculation. So these are, in my opinion, reasonable number. Uh, I believe we're going to have a hype in the beginning, of course, but eventually, over time and over the years, the system will stabilize itself, and the inactive DReps will just act as an abstain vote, and the DReps that stayed active will actively still vote on those governance actions, and I believe those thresholds are reasonably crossable for DReps. But I do not hold the same opinion for stake pool operators, which is why we, at some point, went very close to the soft majority. And the reason is there's no automated abstain for stake pool operators, and if they do nothing and if they don't get involved at all on governance forever, they will never be seen as inactive and they will always be considered as a no vote by the system. Um, again, I'm almost finished with I just made a little script for them, you know, and it's a pretty simple script which you just mention the path to your cold keys, and from your offline environment, it builds for yourself the transaction of voting on every existing governance actions, and you vote abstain. And I was just thinking about calling the abstainer something like that, abstainer.sh, and right, they would just vote abstain on everything, and all you could do from that offline environment, once you've done that, of course you're gonna have to pull the governance state from the from an online node first, because you have to have those governance actions for the script to work. So you just grab that from your online node. You just like what you do with your UTXO, or if you build your transaction from the online node, which I really dislike to do, but some people, it's all right. I mean, if you can verify it offline, I don't mind, but I personally prefer to build everything offline. But that's me. But if you do, I'm just going too far again. But you just have to grab that, and you bring it offline, and the script's going to use it to build your transaction with your vote abstain on everything. So it would be a way to passively vote abstain, but still, it would still be an active vote, but at least you have a script to do it easily for you as an SPO, because and that's if you're comfortable about voting with your cold keys, which I know there's many SPOs who doesn't like it, even though the witness is not sensitive, they just don't like it. And that was another one of my point, that I still believe they should do the same pattern for stateful operators that they do for the Constitutional Committee. So we could use our cold keys to sign a certificate to authorize a set of hot keys to vote as SPOs. Then you wouldn't have to at all, unless your hot keys get compromised, you wouldn't have to use your cold keys for anything. They're just signing this certificate. So probably the SPOs would feel more comfortable about doing that, and they would be more active to vote on governance actions. But right now, I've been confirmed that it's not going to happen in the minimum viable governance, because everything is like almost settled. But they said it was an okay idea. I think they liked it. So maybe eventually, if I just redact a SIP or something, it's going to come whenever I can. So yeah.
Can I ask you two questions, or do you want me to wait till
No, go ahead.
later?
That's what it's for. That's a workshop. Go ahead. You ask your question. Yeah.
So one question is on the DReps. So when you select a DRep, are you going to have to re-up who you select for a DRep every so often, like every 6 months, every certain epochs, every year?
No.
Or like once I select a DRep, is it select and forget?
You can select and forget, and you can have sticky stakes. Yes.
Yeah.
What fixes it? What fixes it is the DRep inactivity, because it won't matter much if the DRep goes inactive, just like retired stake pool, because your stake won't be calculated into the calculation. But if you delegate to a DRep that goes bad, that's something else. And if you do that, and you just decide to, let's not talk about Cardano for 2-3 years, but the DRep that you delegated to that was originally a good one and decided to go on the bad side, then you're fucked. That's all I can say. But
and there's no way for us to change that, right? No way, no parameter where we can say, hey, you have to reselect a DRep every, I don't know, 72 epochs, every year.
No. Everything can be done through a hard fork though. But it's just like stake pools actually, because for some people, I understand it would be annoying, because some investors, they just want to, delegate to a stake pool and leave it there. And if that stake pool retire, then too bad for me or something like that. But again, if you do that for DReps, or if your intentions are to delegate and just leave it there and not think about it, I would suggest you go automatic abstain instead. That would be best, because if you don't want to follow the geopolitic of Cardano, and you want to just leave it there and look for your investment in 3 years, then I would just go abstain and not get involved, but still get my reward. Because if you don't, I believe that if you don't try to stay informed about what your DREP does, or once in a while, not like crazy, but if you don't try to stay informed on what's going on, or if you don't watch the news about Cardano and what action and what people are talking about, then I believe that you probably should not get involved. Or unless you delegate to somebody that you know for a fact or for sure that has been there for long, or I don't know, not gonna give examples, but
Yeah, but then same thing, you'd want to make sure that that person, maybe they were involved and like you said, we're good, but then at some point, if they stop being involved or go bad, then it's gonna go the opposite way, right?
yes. But if they just stop being involved, that has no impact, because eventually you'll get on the abstain side by not being active for where is it? 20 epochs. That's 3 months, I believe. That's what it is right now. 3 months. 3 months of inactivity. Then I believe that, yeah, your DREP should definitively go be seen as an abstain if you don't do nothing. And like I said before, there's some legitimacy in a no vote as well. And that's something that people have to consider, because the fact that your governance action doesn't pass because of passive no votes didn't make it pass doesn't necessarily mean that the system is broken. It could just simply mean that the people don't want your action to pass. But providing a rationale and an active no vote could be a good thing to do once in a while, even if as a DREP I don't want anything to change. So I'll just go passive and make sure that my DREP stays active. So I'll renew my I'll just do an update on my certificate, or I could vote on an info action. These actions going to be fun to vote on, right? I mean, like, could be any questions like, do you like pineapples on pizza? And of course, there's going to be a majority of no. Anyway,
I'll vote yes, Mike. You'll be all right.
but right? I mean, the thing is, and that was hard for us because you may already know it. I'm part of the governance working group, the governance protocol parameter committee working group, and the numbers that you see here are actually our recommendations. So I'm accountable for all these values, especially this one. And I was expecting a lot of hate, but actually I somehow managed to make people understand my point about this. And you'll be surprised that some people in IOG believe that it's still too low.
Yeah.
But again, this is not gonna have so much impact, because the nice thing about our technology is that you can build a smart contract and you can crowdfund that action through the smart contract. So everyone can just put money inside a liquidity pool that's only made for that. And as soon as it reaches 50,000, it's going to vote, it's going to submit your action and vote yes on it through the smart contract. And it's going to use a stake address from the smart contract as a return deposit. And as soon as it's done, it's going to get back to the stake address deposit, from which you're going to send the money back into the smart contract so it can redistribute it to every ADA holders who participated to the pool. So that can definitively be coded. I received confirmation from Thomas, which is that guy's like he's an Haskell machine. It's just This guy's amazing. Anyway, I directly talked to him IRL, and he told me it was totally doable. So I was like, nice. So we got a solution for everyone. And if you can't crowdfund this after probably a certain amount of time, that means that you don't get enough engagement about doing that governance action. So again, this would be a nice reason not to do it. So
Yeah.
right, this can always be coded into a smart contract. And actually, I think Pi mentioned something on Twitter that he was talking about, like it was he was preparing something like this. I just don't know if he left it aside to work on something else. I'm not too good sometimes. I don't get uh sometimes I get brides of news, like, right here and there, and there's so much there's so much to know about what's going on sometimes that I feel like I'm getting off track, and I can't keep up.
Yeah, no, I know how you feel.
So yeah, and the more I work on my things, uh, the worse it gets, actually.
Hmm. Yeah.
But there's something I can tell you right now that I'm very anxious that I made a song. As you may know, there was a song with the last infographic, and there was another song that I made for myself originally, but my girlfriend pushed me to post it on Twitter because I was so fucking tired of being called a cult, and I was like, yeah, you call us a cult, we're gonna be a cult, fuckers. Sorry, forget about. I'm just gonna beat myself, but I was like, okay, fuck it. So I made this song, and I'm a big, I like hard rock, metal, and especially power metal, like Blind Guardian kind of music,
Hmm.
and so that's why I did that. But the thing is, that leads me to the next infographic is going to be explained into a song. So
Let me just say, let me say that was an awesome song. I reposted, listened to it multiple times.
really, it depends on what you like as a music, right? But the okay, I'm gonna say the next song is ready, and I'm rushing I'm trying to rushing to finish the infographic because the song is really nice, and I made the song again. It's in the same style, but it's like a heroic sound, like like one of those heroes that those cartoon heroes, right? The theme song of it could be anything, like One Punch or those heroes on television, and I made it like that, but the song explains the infographics, like each parameters, and there's a verse explaining, that parameter, and it's kind of cool. I worked a
That
lot
sounds
on it,
cool.
but yeah, I gotta build the infographic, and I'm far from done because I want it to be super pretty. So eventually it's gonna be ready. Uh, and I got those
Well,
workshops too.
that's not just a fun idea. We learn better through music, so it's
Yes.
actually an effective tool.
If that song I made it, I tried to make it so it's catchy. So if that song is catchy, then it's gonna stick inside your mind, like it's gonna stay there. So right, so each protocol parameter from the technical group, and there's actually there's not so much. There's like six or seven, something like that. But the most complicated one amongst the ones from the technical group is the Bluetooth cost model. There's a lot to say about this one, and actually I can probably show it to you if you want to see what I'm talking about. Um, Bluetooth cost model. Explain. I'm gonna try like this. I think that's actually this link. And here, so this is the Bluetooth cost model, which is also seen here. So here all you can see is the values. Give me a second. Okay, I glitched it. Hold on, like this. All right. Yeah, that gets. There you go. All right. So here, they used to write them all, but now they just use number values. But this is the cost model. for Plutus V3 right here. And if you want to know what all of these are, you can see them from the page I just showed you, which is not there anymore. Where is it? Did I close it? I think I closed it. Just give me a second. There it is. Yeah. So each one of these parameters, so it's pretty much the cost of everything you do, every resources that you use as a stake pool operators to run those scripts, right? Linear model, coefficient for CPU calculation. There's a fee, there's a cost model for everything. So all of these. And I need to find a way to explain them all. And on top of that, make it simple. I'm sure I can make it. I hope so. But the thing is, there's no more documentation than this. And I asked Carlos, and I'm gonna ask Kevin Amount as well, if there's a way for me to get more explanations on that than just the small definition of each one of them, right? Linear model, intercept for CPU calculation, coefficient for CPU calculation, linear model, intercept for the memory calculation. Does that ring you a bell? Because for me, it's like, I want to say it's like Chinese. I understand what a CPU is and, you know, right? The calculations. But my question to Carlos was like, how did you get to these numbers, right? Like, why 0 for this one? Why 1 for that one? Why the first one is like, and actually it's in Lovelace, right? It's 205,000 something Lovelace. But if you add them all together, it's probably gonna end up being like 238, I don't know. But it's mostly about memory usage and computation from your smart contract transaction. So yeah. So do you guys want to know, do you have any questions? Because there's some tricky questions out there, right? And like one that has been asked during Cardano over coffee was like, why isn't there a saturation point for DReps? I do have the answer, but I would like to know if you guys know the answer.
I don't know. I think there should be.
You think there should be?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm gonna say it like this. Everything bad I do in real life, I get a consequence for doing it, right? If I steal your car, I'm going to jail. If I kill somebody, I'm going to jail. Or probably in some states I might die. But the idea is there's a consequence for everything bad that you do if it is seen as being bad. If you put a saturation point on a stake pool operator, on a stake pool, and you reach saturation, what could you be willing to do? You have that answer. If you're not from the SPAs, right? If you're not a single stake pool operator that actually do respect the values of this group, what would you do?
Spin up another pool.
You would roll
Yeah,
up another pool. Exactly. And
promotes decentralization.
that's correct. The thing is, to do that, I can tell you right now, to start up another pool is 1,000 times harder than it is to spin up a new DRep. I can create a DRep right now from scratch with barely 8 lines of code. Barely 8 lines. Snap of a finger. So
Yeah, but with spinning up a separate DRep though, everyone's going to know you're still that same DRep, right?
yes,
Or else you're not going to get delegation to you.
not necessarily. If the people like what you do, they will still delegate to that second DRep, which is you. So that's one of the reasons why, and that brings me to actually, that's very interesting what you say, because it brings me to the picture that I showed you, which is the I'm gonna get this one actually. What's it called? I called it the ideology line. Oh, that's actually not like this. Politic. There it is. Okay, that brings me to this. Can I have it bigger? Political spectrum. That's what I was looking for. Political spectrum. If I can just grab, there it is. Yeah, I'll just save that and go grab it and make it bigger. Where is it? Download. There you are. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, it's not super pretty, but if, and what I'm gonna say might sound like not so good. If the community wants a dictator, they're gonna have a dictator. If the community wants a democracy, then they will make sure to spread their stake properly. If I delegate to someone that has too much stake and too much power, eventually at a certain level, he's gonna be almost fully in power. So this balance will highly depend, or mostly depend, on the community's decision, and depending on, again, the needs from the majority of the community itself. Which means that if they want a dictator, they're gonna get a dictator. If they want democratic socialism, they're gonna get democratic socialism. If they want, they're gonna delegate to people that goes according to their values. And if the power of that person goes above their values, they're gonna delegate to someone else that thinks the same, but that is not necessarily the same person. Because if I, as a DRep, spin up another DRep, I will still get delegators even if I'm not a DRep, and you cannot enforce on-chain rules that can hold me from doing that. Because there is no way for the chain to know that it's me. It's just another node spinning up new credentials and submit again. The ledger doesn't make the difference. So this is why, or one of the reasons why, there is no saturation point. Because if you force a saturation point on DReps, that will happen. I can tell you right now, 100% sure. You will see multiple DReps, and we're gonna call them MDReps, like MPO, multiple, or it could be probably MRep. I don't know what I don't know what they called it, but yeah, that's one of the thing. And again, we're gonna have DReps. I'm really hoping for that. We're gonna have DReps who's gonna have um, values as well. So for example, as a DRep, inside the rationale of my registration, I can put information like if I ever reach above, let's say, random number, 10% of the total active stake, then I will actively vote abstain on everything until the delegators move away to somebody else. Because according to my value and my integrity that I want to preserve, I don't feel comfortable about having so much power. Those are going to be great DReps. I'm really expecting some people to be exactly like that. And
I almost think that's why there should be a threshold, Mike, because I think part of having thresholds is education, right? Like it's kind of like the same thing with having a saturation level. It's to try to educate the community about the fact that it's dangerous for pools to have too much stake under their control. And kind of the same thing with the DREP. It'd be good information to say, hey, here's a threshold that we think as a community someone shouldn't go above.
yeah, but I ideologically that's not the same because the stake pool operator has a money incentive. The more stake he gets, the more reward you get at the end. So it's directly related to your money and the money that you generate. But a DREP, it's directly related about your opinion about that person because there's no money incentive other that is he going to vote my way. I don't get reward from delegating to a DREP. So again, the difference between those two is that if you don't impose a saturation point to stake pool operators, they will generate way too much reward, and then you will end up getting your system a centralized system because some people just want the money, they want the bacon. I call it the bacon, but they want the money. So if you can reach, I don't know, 1 billion stake for a single stake pool, and I just for barely holding 1,000 ADA, I get almost like 30, 50 ADA per epoch, then of course I'm probably going to go there. I don't care if he gets all the stake. I don't care if he controls the system. I want the money. Some people think like that. But for DREP, it's
Yeah.
different. For DREPs,
Yeah,
you,
no,
you
you're
delegate
right. That's a good point.
you delegate to somebody you like. And if you impose a saturation point to that person, he can spin up another one like again in a snap of the finger, and it's actually very, very, very easy. Like I'm not joking. It's like 8 lines of code, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm in those 8 lines. I'm adding the flags for each command. So you generate your keys. You don't even need to generate a DREP ID. You generate your keys, you register it. End of the story. That's done. Deposit. No need to register a relay. No need to create keys, verification keys, uh, renew these keys, and all those things that we do as stateful operators, like query the leadership schedule, make sure it's always online. Right? You just spin up a
Yeah.
DREP, and when you don't use your computer, you just don't use it. Close. Anyway, but again, if you don't impose saturation point, very interesting things gonna happen because of this little ugly infographic about the ideologies. You can end up with dictators, but socialism dictators, and there's the capitalism part as well, corporate police state, but that's some kind of way to say like that's the extreme. But where and that's what really interests me right now, where is the community is going to be? Like where are we going to be there? Because we're going to have a list of DReps, and there's going to be different amount of stake per DReps. And depending on the amount that each one gets and the way they think about the protocol parameters or the way that it should be done is going to put us as a community somewhere in that in the map. So we're going to be somewhere. For example, in Quebec we are social democrat. In French, it's social democrat. So it's a democratic socialism in here. So we're like center left. There's a lot of things that's managed by the government. The alcohol, the garbage picking up. What else? Many things. But in the States, you're more like on slightly like not center right, but you're on the right side. It's really around like capitalism, just raw capitalism, or capitalism paradise. But I don't know what Biden and what's going on with the government. Maybe you might be going a little more on the top part than the bottom part. Here, as you can see, it's libertarian, and at the top it's authoritarian. So the extreme here would be anarchy, and the top part would be dictatorship. And also there's the left and the right. The left is more socialism, like uh, Russia, kind of. But still, there's two kinds of socialism. There's the one that the people actually control in the libertarian side, and there's the authoritarian side, like you have a dictator, communism. But the same thing goes for the other side, right? Like the German fascism that we had during the Second World War. It was a far right authoritarian regime, but there's also the libertarian part of this. And that's all the four extreme corners. But I believe that as a community, we should hopefully be close to the center. But where are we going to be? This is going to be very interesting to know. But for sure, for 100% sure, we're going to be somewhere in there. Depending on who we delegate to as a community and their opinions on how it should be. Oh, hey, Spentron, I saw. Oh, hey, how's it going? Spentron's here.
Yeah, I'm just kind of watching, listening in the background. Good conversation as always. How you doing, Mike?
But again, the nice thing about it, there's going to be layers of security, right? Because I'm only specifying the DRep side. The rep side of thing, we're going to be somewhere on this map. But there's also the Constitutional Committee, which normally shouldn't share an opinion about things other than is it or is it not constitutional. And I'm going to push for that. Because I wouldn't be surprised if some of them sometime goes off track of their main role. You want to go off track, you go DRep. You don't go Constitutional Committee. Your job is to validate if my governance action is or is not constitutional and provide rationale for your decision. So if you vote no because you believe that you don't like my governance action, I don't give a beep. Is it constitutional or not? If it is, you vote yes. If it is not, you vote no. If you're not sure and you're very confused, you go abstain, ultimately. But yeah. Do you guys have anything to add? I'm the only one.
I have another question.
Yes. Is it technical
Yeah.
or is it just
It's kind of on voting. I brought it up before. I think me and you've discussed it before. It's the whole SPO side of it. So when SPOs vote, we're voting with our total delegation. And I'm still confused by that because if, let's say, all my delegators decide to pick you as their DRep, yet when there's things that don't hit certain thresholds, the SPOs vote, or certain things that SPOs vote on. So even though my delegators have selected to use their ADA to put behind you and what you want to vote for, I'm still able to vote with their delegation. Correct?
Yes. That's correct.
See, and that still bugs me because that feels, first of all, it's like double voting, right? Because that ADA is actually being delegated to someone else to vote.
Yep.
I like to separate it. Like, you know, there's this, you're delegating to me for stake and staking rewards. And once the government system comes up, then you're going to have DReps, and then you can stake for rewards, and then you've got the side of you're taking your stake and putting it for certain voting power.
Oh,
And
wait,
it
wait,
just
wait.
bugs me that the SPOs are able to vote
You
within
you
the
cannot.
total delegation.
No, you cannot. Okay, hold on. You cannot do that as a DRep. You cannot grab your stake of your stake pool and delegate the entirety of that to your own DRep. You can't do that. You can only.
No. That's not what I was saying.
Oh,
What I'm saying is, if all my delegators picked you as a DRep, when I go to vote as an SPO, even though they selected you to represent them for votes, I'm still voting with their ADA.
yes. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and that just doesn't feel right to me.
The reason is,
I,
yeah, okay, I understand that. That brings me to actually, if you look at exactly what as an SPO you can vote on with those people, you can see there's no treasury withdrawals in there, and you can only vote as an SPO for committee members, the hard fork itself, which is in a way directly related to what you do, because if you don't take the upgrade, which is a choice as an SPO, then the hard fork cannot happen on a high scale, like what happened with Basel. If you, I'm pretty sure you remember that,
mhm.
right? We all remember that, and it was it was an actual. I keep repeating this because it was a great moment for me, because it showed, I believe, to all the community and everyone that really cared about Cardano that IOG doesn't control Cardano. The SPO does. If we don't take the upgrade because we don't feel comfortable about something that happened, like legacy testnet to literally fucked, then we don't take the upgrade. Even if you
Yeah.
try to tell me we fixed the problem, then yeah, well, what problem? Did you figure it out? The answer is no, I'm not taking the upgrade. I'm not. And if I'm not taking the upgrade, your hard fork is not going to happen unless you want to break something. They won't going to do it unless we reach, like, it was 70, 71, 75% of the updates done. Not taking it as an SPO. So you get to decide when to do this hard fork. And I can take the upgrade. I'm not going to do the hard fork until I believe it is ready. That's something I can vote on. And that's something that is fine to use your own stake to vote on, right? Because it's an hard fork. That's already something that indirectly you decide as an SPO, because do you take the upgrade or no? So,
Yeah, and I feel okay voting for that with my delegators delegation, because that update is part of running a node and getting their rewards and all that. So that feels fair.
there's something else. There's the motion of no confidence if you don't like the committee. But again, as a reminder, there's not only the SPO threshold that you need to cross, there's always minimum of 2 and a maximum of 3 per governance action. So everything that the SPO can vote on also have to cross the second layer of security. I'm going to call them layers of security, of governance security. You do have to cross the DRep threshold as well for that. For the motion of no confidence, you can use people's stake to vote on that, and it can probably pass as an SPO because you got a lot of power, and the money incentive of your pool is great because you provide a lot of reward, but you still need the DRep to make it pass. And if you don't have it,
Yeah, but there the stake will be double voted though, right?
not necessarily.
Because if all my delegators picked you as a DRep and you went out and voted as a DRep on the motion of no confidence, and you vote one way, and then let's say I vote the opposite way, that
Yes,
stake actually just went two different ways,
that's correct. But if they do,
voted two different ways.
that's correct. But if they do, that's because they believe in what you think about this, not because they have money to get from it. Because they have no reward from voting, from delegating to you, other than liking your opinion about stuff. So if they do delegate to you, which is fine with me, that's because they like the way you think about those things. Because if they disagree, they still want to get the money, they're going to delegate your stake to your SPO, but they will delegate their voting power to somebody else. So it's a way of seeing things. It can be seen as something bad, but actually they don't get anything from you from delegating their voting power to you in that matter. It's just because they agree on the way you think. For example, the K parameter that you fight so hard for, they totally agree with that. They want to delegate to you. Then you're going to vote toward the raise of K. And it's fine with them because they agree with you. So they will delegate to you. So in a way, the decisions that you make as an SPO and also as a DRep, but as an SPO could be, yeah, they could not.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Let's say I register as a DRep, and all my delegators then select me as a DRep. On something like the motion of no confidence, I'm basically voting with double my stake then, because I'm voting as an SPO with all of that stake, and then I'm voting as a DRep with that same stake.
This
Right. So,
okay.
so
I'm gonna say I'm an SPO as well, right? The thing is, what I intend to do, because if you do that, you have to expect that you're gonna lose some of your delegators there, because some of them will see this as a bad thing, which I believe it is. But as an SPO, if you want to keep your integrity, what I would personally do if I had to do that, let's say I want to go public, right? Because you can always represent yourself privately. You want to vote with your own stake, you want to participate, but you don't want delegations. You can do that, and that's totally fine with me. But if you want to go public, if I'm the stake, I'm the pool owner of Able Stake Pool, right? I want to be DRep as well. I want to be public. Okay, what do? Do I get involved in motion of no confidence, committee no confidence, or, well, actually that's the same action, the election of constitutional committee members? Of course I could, as a DRep. But as an SPO, I can tell in my DRep rationale, I am the SPO of Able Stake Pools, and I engage to vote abstain on all these three, or could be four, but I'm gonna just say all these three, because that's something else I'm gonna talk about just a little bit. I'm going to go abstain on all these three, but actively vote on those as a DRep. But as an SPO, again, I will get involved into hard forks. You can do that. Because if you don't, you have to expect to lose some delegations. And if you lose some delegations, you lose power. If you lose power, then your power is related to what the community wants from a DRep. So if you don't have much power, that's because you get engagement. It's like an engagement level, actually. So people.
Yeah, I really like that idea, Mike. That's really good.
I was thinking a lot about it, to be honest, because I honestly, personally, I just love governance. I love it so much that I know I will participate. I just don't know yet if I want to be public or private. But I can tell you that if I go public, these guys here, as an SPOs, abstain. Fully abstain.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But this one here, hard forks, I'm an SPO. I have to. It's just like, it's just, we've always done it, actually, right? And the way we had to protest against an hard fork was to not take the upgrade, but now we'll do the same, but differently. We can take an upgrade, but we'll just decide whenever we initiate the hard fork itself. The PP security, though, that's something else. Because you only get the protocol parameter that's seen as a security feature. And that I might vote also as an SPO, because I do have the expertise as an SPO to really understand those protocol parameters that's directly related to security and to the security of the chain itself. So again, I'm just like not entirely sure if I will or not go abstain on this one, but I believe it is important.
Yeah, I do too. I don't think I would abstain on that one.
Well, yeah. Anyway, if you look at do I have it here? The list of those protocol parameters, that's something that's like super likely not to change. Because first, it's going to be hard. You need 3 layers of security. You need the constitutional committee, the DReps, and the SPOs to vote on that. And if I go according to the, where is it? Where did I put that? According to the protocol parameter, that's PP security group. That's 60%. 60% of the SPOs has to vote for it. And I don't know if you remember, and that was one of my point about not having those numbers too high. You remember of course you remember your ECP pool. You know what I'm gonna add, the SIP 94, right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that, right? Yeah, of course you do. You made the tutorial for that. But you remember how much engagement we had for it? The percentage of the total amount of ADA stake to stake pools that just voted, including abstain on that poll. Do you remember? I do have the numbers in there. 49.2%. That's what we got. Not even a soft majority, and there was abstain votes in there, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So please try to convince me, change my mind about what those numbers here should be. If you want to stall governance, you're gonna raise those numbers high, because if you really expect all the SPOs to engage in governance, even if it's for whatever security group motion, all those actions, you need a soft majority, because some of them, let's be honest, they just don't care. They just don't care. They're not gonna vote. They're not gonna bother. They won't even try to learn it. They don't care. And there's another portion of them who don't feel comfortable about using their cold keys. And I don't want to name that guy, but there's somebody that's very well known, that is super smart, that is the owner of one of the DeFis that we know, who didn't vote. And he said it out loud. I'm not comfortable about using my cold key for that. Why? It's a witness.
Yeah, I don't understand. We use our cold keys for, for a bunch of different things. So it doesn't make sense to me, but whatever.
Well, if you see it this way, the only moment you have to sign with your cold keys is for your pool registration. Otherwise, you use your verification key for your key yes renewal. You don't have to sign anything.
Yeah.
But that being said,
I do pooled updates pretty often though. So for me, I feel like I use my cold keys a lot. But yeah.
Yeah, I understand. But that's anyway. Still, it is not sensitive. It's a witness. You don't expose your keys. But again, they just don't feel comfortable about the whole thing, right? Because just the carrying, it has some sort of risk. The carrying of the transaction itself from your hot environment to your cold environment. And even if you build your transaction from your cold environment, you still have to pull something from the hot environment. It's either the governance section you want to vote on, the hash from it, or the protocol parameters that you need to make those calculations, because they did change on chain because of a previous governance action that's got enacted. Then you have to pull them back and bring them to your cold environment. So they just don't like it. They don't want to do it. Some people I know, they did their pool cert and they're not going to touch it forever. Right? They're just going to renew their keys and leave it like that and do their transaction and then let the money flow. So this is why that I believe that even with those numbers, you're going to have a hard time to reach a decent amount of yes votes on stuff that's related to them. So that brings me to the fact that the PP security group And every protocol parameter that's involved in this group are most likely not to change very soon. And if you remember, there was a lot of engagement with the SIP 94, right? I mean, like everyone was talking about it. It was so cool. I loved it. I was an advocate for the 1000, and actually, I still am, but differently. Without talking too much about it, I would like it to be raised eventually to that, but with better technologies for because some people, some SPOs, they use like I'm not gonna say shitty hardwares, but like energy efficient, but still like it wouldn't be bad if they could just slightly upgrade, maybe. Anyway, I just but again, eventually I would like to see that raised, but slowly but surely, right? Like not just like a bam 1000, right? We could go from 500 to okay, let's raise that to 575 and see. Okay, so we measure things. Okay, everything's going. Well, it's looking good. Let's raise that to 625. Okay. Oh, right. All right. All right. Yeah, that's good. I like it. Okay, let's raise it again. Like, I like that approach. I don't like just like huge step like bam.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah, if you
1000.
remember though, IOG put out that article saying that it was better to go in one big step because they see it as, disruptive and that it's something that should be done in a big increment like that.
Really?
Yeah, if you want, later I'll send you the article because they put out an article when it was originally supposed to go to 1,000 back
Oh
in
yeah,
March of 2021.
the first yes, the
Uh,
yeah, I remember that. I wasn't even an SPO, but I do remember that. Yeah, and it was for a long time, and probably still is. I'm not sure. On the pool tool, they had those toggle thing that you could like see what would be the actual saturation point
oh
if it was a
yeah,
1000. I don't know if you remember. It was
yeah,
like a toggle button in the
yeah.
saturation window, I think. But yeah. Hey, we got past the it's so much fun. But yeah, I was supposed to stick that into an hour, and we went to an hour and a half almost. Hey, was it okay for everyone else? I keep talking with Rick because I never did actually talk with him before. He sounds like a great guy. Is it okay for everyone? Spentron, you didn't talk too much. And G Coco, no? You guys?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I'm going to check out all the sites and see if the tech is not totally above my head. And because I get the philosophy and I want to participate. So yeah, if I can get that down, I'm gonna do it. If not, I'll just support from the sidelines.
If I can suggest you something, okay? I know that sometimes and I can understand that honestly because I learned everything from scratch. Everything. And it could be very confusing. Like when you go to high tech stuff and probably not the ideology part because that's something that we're used to kind of with the politics that we live with depending on where you live. But if you want to, if you're very interested, there's my YouTube channel where we actively discuss about those things. A great song here.
I'm on my phone. What is it? What's the channel? So it's hard to see.
I will share it uh, directly to you. I'll just send it to you straight like that. There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
And
That's my homework for tomorrow.
that's my YouTube channel. You just have to go to the workshop sections because that's the places that's a place where we mostly talk like this, right? We just bring opinions, and if there's something I can bring or give you, because I do have my own opinion, I do accept everyone else's opinion. That's all right. I just really love debates, and if you can bring your opinions and suggestions, that's great. Um, on a technical level, I can also inform you very precisely on the way that it's made on chain. Like this is how it is. This is how that parameter works, and things like that. I can help you with that. And that's what we do during the workshops, and they're all recorded. And this one as well is recorded. And I'm just putting in them all on YouTube. And if you wanna, you could just like not necessarily watch them all because they're, some of them are like 2 hours. I try to make it as close as possible to an hour, but every time I just keep like yapping and it never stops. But, I'm sorry, but yeah, we just have so much fun, right? So if you want to get informed, there's some things you might learn there. But if you want to go more technical, there's the playlist that explains everything you need to know from scratch on how to build your node, how to generate your payment keys, your certificate, your delegation certificate, your DRep ID, and how to build governance actions from the command line interface directly from the terminal, and you interact directly from your own node that you own, that actually is a very safe one, really, because it's only outbound connections. You only connect to other nodes to get the blockchain, and you only send transaction through the memory pool. So you have no inbound connections. You have nobody connecting to your own node. But you directly interact with the blockchain. And that's probably, in my opinion, the safest way to do things if you do it properly, right? And if you generate your keys from a cold environment. But everything is explained in there. Everything. So you can go through that playlist as well if you want to. And that's it. If you speak French, there's some French video, but they're pretty old. I need to redo them. And yeah, that's it. Nothing else to say.
Oh, thank you.
All right, I hope you guys liked it. And it was a very interesting conversation. Actually, I really loved it.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good week.
You too. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thanks, Mike. Got up late,
Thank
but
you so much.
it's